Welcome back to Bariatric Business Accelerator. I'm your host, Carol Clark, and today we're starting a new three-part series called Before You Hire. And I want to lead with something that might be a little surprising, and that is that most hiring decisions in any practice, whether it be weight loss, bariatric, lifestyle medicine, are made reactively, not necessarily strategically. It's made reactively. Someone quits unexpectedly, patient volume spikes, and the team is stretched thin. The physician is burning out and desperately needs some relief. And so a hire gets made quickly under pressure or just because the team said, we need more people. And they're hired into a role that wasn't perhaps clearly defined, and 6 months later, it's not working, and nobody's quite sure why. This series is designed to help you avoid that, whether you're thinking about your first hire, your fifth, or your 100th hire. These 3 episodes will walk you through the questions that matter before you post a single job listing. So today we're starting with the most important question of all. Are you actually ready to hire, or are you just overwhelmed? There oftentimes can be a people gap versus a systems gap, and I see this all the time. The first thing I want you to consider is whether what you're experiencing is genuinely a people gap, meaning you truly need another set of hands, or whether it's a systems gap, wearing a costume, so to speak, of a people problem. Here's what I mean. I recently worked with a practice, and I also did this in a health system, where the owner or the practice administrator was convinced that they needed to hire a second care coordinator because the first one was completely swamped. Patient follow-up was falling through the cracks, calls weren't getting returned, and the coordinator was leaving every day feeling exhausted, behind, and of course frustrated. And when we really dug into it, the coordinator wasn't managing too many patients. She was managing too much chaos. There was no documented follow-up process. Every patient interaction required a judgment call because there was no standardization. And she was essentially rebuilding the wheel every single day, which was frustrating for her, the entire team, the physicians, and the patients, of course. They didn't need a second care coordinator. They needed a system. Once we put that in place, the one coordinator handled the volume very comfortably, and they saved the salary of a hire that they almost made by mistake. So I encourage you, before you hire, ask yourself honestly, is this a workload problem or a workflow problem? Because hiring into a broken workflow just gives you a better staffed, broken workflow. And the real cost of a bad hire is something we all need to consider. Now, I'm not saying don't hire. Sometimes you will genuinely do need another person, but I want you to go into it clear-eyed about what a bad hire costs. Because in a weight loss or bariatric practice or lifestyle medicine, it's more than just a wasted salary. A bad hire actually costs you the time you spent recruiting, interviewing, onboarding, which you know is often weeks at a time. It costs you the disruption to your existing team, who now has to compensate for someone who isn't pulling their weight. It costs you patient experience because patients interact with your staff constantly and they notice inconsistencies. And it costs you your own energy, which in a small practice or even a large one is one of your most finite resources. I've seen bad hires damage team morale for months after the person has left. The team that watched it happen, the ones who had to cover, those who had to manage around a problem, they remember, and that residue lingers, and it can affect the whole vibe of your office. A thoughtful hire takes more time up front. It's always worth it, though, in my mind. The role you think you need versus the role you actually need is another thing that I see can be a mismatch between the role a practice thinks they need versus the role that they actually need. So a physician may tell me that they need to hire a medical assistant, but when I ask what they actually need that person to do, it becomes clear that what they really need is someone who can manage patient communication, follow up after consultations, and keep their pipeline moving. That's not a medical assistant. That's a care coordinator. And those are very different skill sets, very different personalities, and very different hires. And of course, in a small office, often they do more than one role, and that can work as well. Oftentimes a practice may think that they need front desk help when what they actually need is someone who can own their social media and marketing outreach, a role that requires a completely different type of person. If you get very clear on what you need this person to actually do before you title the role, Start with that's going to be very important. Start with the tasks, not the job title. Write down everything you need done that isn't getting done or isn't getting done well. And then figure out what kind of person does these things. The title comes last. That's really not important at all, as most of you probably know. Some questions that I encourage you to ask before you post a new position or any position, before you write a single job listing, ask and sit with these questions. Have I documented what this person will be responsible for? Not a vague job description, actual tasks, actual expectations, actual metrics that show success. Do I have time to train someone right now? Because a new hire without real onboarding is a setup for failure on both sides of the equation. Ask yourself, have I ruled out a systems fix first? Is there a process we could build that would solve this problem without adding someone else to the team roster? And finally, what does success look like for this role at 90 days? If you can't answer these questions clearly, you're not ready to probably hire yet. And so I just want to say that in part 2, we're going to go deeper into the most important thing hire in a weight loss or bariatric practice, the care coordinator, even if initially this role is being done by someone already on your team. What to look for, what you can train versus what you can't, what they have to have inherently in their personality, and how to interview for the qualities that actually predict success in that role. If you want a starting point in the meantime, grab some free resources at weightlosspracticebuilder.com/free. There is a lot there to get you going and also can provide clarity on where your practice stands before you make any big decisions. I'd love it if you could subscribe and share this with any colleagues who might get some use of it. And I will see you in part 2 as we consider this or we continue this before you hire series. In the meantime, if I can also be of any service, just reach out to me. Go to the website. You'll see every way to get a hold of me and also to find many other mini courses and free resources. So in the meantime, take care.